Japan has extended its state of emergency until the 31st of May as government officials have warned that it was too soon to ease the restrictions. After a meeting to discuss further measures, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzō Abe announced that the period of the state of emergency declared on the 7th of April will be extended until the 31st of May. Shinzō Abe added that experts would assess the situation on the 14th of May again, and the emergency could possibly be repealed before the deadline if the situation improves. Japan currently has around 15,000 COVID-19 cases and around 500 deaths. Even though cases are on a downward decline in the country, authorities believe that the rate in which it is falling is just not fast enough. And for more, we're now being joined by our correspondent Grace Lee from Japan's capital, Tokyo. Grace, talk to us an extension of the state of emergency, even as the number of cases are witnessing a decline, just that it's not fast enough.
Yeah, like you said, the numbers aren't falling fast enough, and we're hearing from medical professionals that medical supplies in Japan are squeezed. Hospitals are too full with COVID-19 patients. So overall, it's just too soon to let people, go out and enjoy their days like before. Now, although Japan is under a state of emergency at this point, it is a little different from other parts in the world where we've seen very strict lockdown measures. Here in Japan, that's technically not allowed. The government isn't capable of forcing people to stay indoors. So people are still going outside. Restaurants are still open until 8 p.m. It's just that major facilities like parks, museums, those kinds of things are closed. But the government is now working to try and relax some of those measures because of pushback from its citizens. People here say they're already fatigued by the limited measures that have been put in here in Japan. So the government is looking to ease restrictions, especially on those things that I just mentioned, the parks, the museums, and have people visit those places with some more social distancing measures. Now, whether or not it's too soon to allow this to happen, it's not quite clear, but again, Japan's hospitals are squeezed, and we are seeing that a lot of hospital facilities and hospital workers are saying that, they're overwhelmed by the number of cases so far.
And there will be an assessment of the situation in 10 days' time on the 14th of May, after which there could be a call made to either bring back the emergency date earlier or even extend it further.
Yeah, so they keep doing this on a touch-and-go basis. So now that they've extended it for a while, they'll have another discussion and see if it's appropriate or not to lift these measures. But we do have to remember cases like in Hokkaido, one of the major islands here in Japan, where they had very strict measures because of the rise in cases. They relaxed those measures a little too quickly, and then they saw another surge of cases of COVID-19. So there is that fear that we're going to see a resurgence of cases, especially because Japan is on a downward trend when it comes to the number of new cases. A lot of those cases, though, are not traceable, meaning that the government doesn't have a firm hold on where these infections are spreading and where these patients are getting contaminated. So with that in mind, it does seem like, especially with Japan's limited testing, it does seem like there are more infections occurring here in Japan. It's just that we're not able to see them or count them.
Grace, Japan has a ticking time bomb on its head simply because there is an Olympics that needs to be held. There are so many questions over whether, if there is going to be any delays on the renewed date, which is July 2021, and if Japan is not able to hold an Olympics games at that point in time, then it might get cancelled forever. So from that perspective, how exactly is Japan reacting? Because initially it seemed as if it was trying to, portray as if the situation is not as bad as it is on the ground, and then it had to eventually contend with the reality of the situation.
Yeah, so Japan only pushed back the Olympics after Canada and Australia said that they weren't going to participate anymore if the Olympics are held in 2020. So it is pushed back a year, but top epidemiologists here in Japan have already said that that even seems very stretched, and that probably won't be able to happen, especially if there are still COVID-19 cases, not just here in Japan, but in other parts of the world. You think about the Olympics, you think about how people are traveling from all parts of the world into these very small, very confined spaces with each other. It doesn't seem like a very good recipe for fighting COVID-19. A lot of social distancing measures will be put in place until the end of this year and beyond for a lot of countries around the world. So it's very hard to imagine a scenario where Japan is able to hold the Olympics next year and have people from all over the world travel here to Japan to participate. So with that in mind, it does seem that holding the Olympics next year seems a bit ambitious for Japan, but nonetheless, the government is still preparing for it, and it would be a huge economic hit on an already suffering economy if the Olympics are canceled altogether. One estimate from Reuters showed that Japan is suffering about a $10 billion hit just for pushing it back. If it is canceled later on, that's going to be even a bigger hit on Japan's pockets. And people here are already suffering from COVID-19's kind of wrath on the economy. We saw a lot of people with their small businesses suffering. Big businesses are also asking for government help. And, you know, especially with the numbers, the tourism numbers from China falling, Japan has become more of a tourism-oriented country now. And so with its doors shut to the rest of the world, it's just been very hard on people here to kind of try to manage their businesses.
Grace Lee getting us that ground report straight from Japan's capital, Tokyo. Thank you, Grace, for being with us here on the broadcast.